Not one NFL stadium makes the top 10 biggest stadiums in America. Not one. Every single building on that list belongs to a college. And the smallest one still seats almost 9,000 more people than the biggest stadium the entire NFL has to offer. If asked to name the biggest stadium in America, you would probably think AT&T Stadium, because Jerry Jones spent $1 billion making sure that's the first name in your head. Or MetLife, since it's technically the largest building in the league. Neither one comes within striking distance. An NFL owner could spend $5 billion on a brand new stadium tomorrow and it still wouldn't crack this top 10. Welcome to Big Builds. Here's the actual reason that keeps happening. A college football team gets 7 home games a year, maybe 8. Every seat in that building only gets a handful of chances a season to make its money back. So the answer for 100 years running has been to build as many seats as physically possible and let volume cover the gap. An NFL team plays 10 home dates counting preseason, and modern NFL owners make their real money off suites, club seats, and sponsorship rights, not general admission. So NFL stadiums get built smaller and richer, while college programs just keep building wider. Everything on this list is what that math looks like after a century of compounding. Number 10, Rose Bowl, UCLA Bruins, 91,136. We're starting with the one you already know for reasons that have nothing to do with UCLA football. The Rose Bowl opened in 1922, and since then, it's hosted 4 Super Bowls, 2 Olympic Games, and the 1994 World Cup Final, all while still functioning as a college football stadium every single Saturday of the season. Most buildings on this list only ever move in one direction: more seats every renovation. The Rose Bowl is the exception, and it's doing it on purpose. A $30 million renovation finishing this year is tearing out thousands of bench seats to build a premium field-level club, part of a longer plan to shrink the building down toward 70,000 seats over time. It's already playing the NFL's game, trading raw seats for richer ones, and it isn't the only stadium on this list that will. And it's still the smallest building on this entire list. Number 9, Stanford Stadium, Georgia Bulldogs, 93,033. Here's the one detail that makes Stanford Stadium different from literally everything else on this list. It's still bordered by a garden. The field is ringed by privet hedges that have grown there since the place opened in 1929. Planted because Georgia's athletic director had just returned from the Rose Bowl and decided he wanted his own version of the aesthetic. Georgia rode a 71-game sellout streak in this building, and a $68.5 million renovation actually added a few hundred more seats, bringing capacity up to 93,033. Georgia added seats. Almost nobody else on this list did. Alabama and the Rose Bowl have both traded seats away for club-level seating in their most recent renovations. Georgia just kept building for the crowd. And somehow, the next stadium up makes a garden feel modest. Number 8, Bryant-Denny Stadium, Alabama Crimson Tide, 100,077. Alabama spent $107 million renovating Bryant-Denny Stadium and came out the other side holding fewer people than when it started. Capacity dropped from a 2010 peak of 101,821 down to 100,077, roughly 1,700 fewer seats, and every one of those lost seats got replaced with something that pays better. 3,826 new premium seats, 3 new club areas, loge boxes, and a fresh run of suites. The building itself is named for Bear Bryant, the coach who built the dynasty, and George Denny, the university president who actually built the stadium back in 1929. Up next is a stadium that went the exact opposite direction, somehow finding room for thousands more fans than it's supposed to hold. Number 7, Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, Texas Longhorns, 100,119. DKR has been standing on the University of Texas campus since 1924, and a $175 million South End Zone expansion finished in 2021 packed with suites, loge boxes, and a field-level club without shrinking the general seating. It houses Big Bertha, widely considered the largest drum in the world, the kind of instrument you don't just hear, you feel it in your chest 3 sections away. And the list capacity of 100,119 has never actually stopped Texas fans from showing up in bigger numbers than that. The record here is 105,215 set in 2024. Somehow, somewhere, 5,000 extra people found a way in. And up next is the only stadium in the country with its own Navy. Number 6, Neyland Stadium, Tennessee Volunteers, 101,915. Neyland sits directly on the bank of the Tennessee River, and Tennessee fans built an entire pregame ritual around that geography. Hundreds of boats dock along the shoreline before every home kickoff, a floating tailgate the locals just called the Vol Navy, which might be the single best answer to what do you do if your stadium happens to sit on a river that college football has ever come up with. The stadium itself has been expanded 16 separate times since 1921, swelling all the way to 104,079 seats by the year 2000. Then, in 2006, the university tore out 2,400 bench seats to build a luxury club that resembles an English pub, dropping capacity by 1,700 people in a single off-season, so a few hundred fans could watch the game from somewhere nicer. Tennessee is now $337 million into another renovation, and this time the seating capacity has barely moved at all, holding at 101,915. 16 expansions and 1 demolition in. This building has never stopped being reshaped by whatever made the most money that decade. The checkerboard end zones have marked this field since the 1960s, and it remains one of the oldest venues on this entire list, expanded over and over for the same reason every stadium on this list keeps expanding, with only 7 shots a year to fill the building. Tennessee never had a reason to leave money on the table. The next one up has actually been mistaken for an earthquake. Number 5, Tiger Stadium, LSU Tigers, 102,321. They call this place Death Valley, and in 1988 it earned the nickname in the most literal way possible. LSU scored a last-second touchdown to beat Auburn. The crowd noise spiked so hard it registered on a seismograph sitting in the university's own geology department a few buildings away, and the game has been known as the Earthquake Game ever since. An $80 million South End Zone expansion in 2014 pushed capacity up to 102,321, adding a 3,000-seat stadium club and 70 skybox suites without touching general admission. Recorded crowd noise here has been measured over 130 decibels during big defensive stands, on par with standing next to a jet engine, and LSU schedules its biggest games at night on purpose, because a hostile crowd in Baton Rouge only gets scarier once the sun goes down. None of that required a single suite. It just required more seats than the last renovation, over and over, because a program that only plays 7 home games a year has nothing to sell but the crowd itself. The next one cost $485 million, and unlike Alabama and the Rose Bowl, every dollar of it went into more seats, not fewer. Number 4, Kyle Field, Texas A&M Aggies, 102,733. Texas A&M spent $485 million renovating Kyle Field, finishing in 2015, and somehow the building got louder instead of just fancier. During a blocked punt against Alabama in 2017, the crowd hit a recorded 126 decibels, a stadium record. Every single Aggie student stands for the entire game without sitting down once, a tradition called the 12th man that traces back to a single student named E. King Gill getting pulled out of the stands in 1922 to suit up when the team ran dangerously low on healthy players. Up next is a stadium that spends every single season staring up at its biggest rival. Number 3, Ohio Stadium, Ohio State Buckeyes, 102,780. Ohio State's athletic department pulled in $336 million in revenue last year, more than any athletic department in the country, and none of it comes from tuition or tax dollars. That kind of money is why Ohio Stadium doesn't look much like the building that opened in 1922. A $194 million renovation completed in 2001 tore out the running track, sank the playing field, and sealed the open end of the horseshoe into a full bowl. Another $42 million went in between 2017 and 2020, pulling capacity down from 104,944 to its current 102,780 to make room for new loge boxes and luxury suites, joining Alabama and the Rose Bowl as programs cashing seats in for something that pays better. The shoe everybody watches on Saturdays has been substantially rebuilt twice this century alone, funded by a department that runs less like a university office and more like a business with a stadium attached. It's still exactly 4,821 seats smaller than Michigan's, a gap Wolverine fans have never once let go unmentioned. The next stadium has been called the loudest in the conference by Michigan's and Ohio State's own coaches. Number 2, Beaver Stadium, Penn State Nittany Lions, 106,572. Beaver Stadium is the runner-up here, already bigger than every NFL stadium in the country by a laughably wide margin. When Penn State built it in 1960, they didn't start from scratch. Crews physically tore sections off the school's old 1909 stadium and reassembled the steel here, which means parts of the frame holding up over 100,000 fans today have been standing since before the Titanic sank. Penn State is now underway on a $700 million renovation, the largest in the stadium's history, scheduled to finish in 2027. On whiteout nights, when the whole crowd wears white and recorded noise has climbed past 130 decibels, the noise has actually forced opposing coaches to burn timeouts before the first play from scrimmage even happens. In a Big Ten coaches poll taken at 2025 Media Days and reported by SI.com, more than a third of the head coaches surveyed named Beaver Stadium the loudest in the conference, including the head coaches of both Ohio State and Michigan, which leaves exactly one stadium left to actually beat it. Number 1, Michigan Stadium, Michigan Wolverines, 107,601. And at the very top, the building everybody just calls the Big House. Most of the bowl sits sunk below ground level, which is the part that messes with people. A stadium seating 107,601 fans barely peeks over the treeline when you're driving past it on a random Tuesday. Michigan Stadium cost $950,000 to build in 1927, paid for by 3,000 bonds sold to alumni at $500 each. Not $1 of public money. SoFi Stadium, built almost a century later, cost $5.5 billion and holds 70,000 people. A $226 million renovation finished in 2010 added 83 luxury suites and 3,200 club seats, and unlike Alabama, Ohio State, or the Rose Bowl, Michigan somehow did it while pushing general capacity even higher, not lower, up to a peak of 109,901. On the biggest game days, announced attendance has crossed 115,000, more people than actually live in cities like Green Bay, Wisconsin, all packed into one bowl to watch a college football game in the middle of autumn. But even that big house hasn't been immune. In 2015, the school quietly cut capacity down to its current 107,601, eliminating seats to widen aisles and add handrails for accessibility compliance. It's held there ever since. Right now, college, pro, or otherwise, it's still the biggest stadium in the entire United States. But the biggest stadium in America has been shrinking for over a decade. And even Michigan, the last program on this list that was still building purely for volume, is running out of room to keep doing it. Step back, and the pattern is impossible to miss. Not one NFL stadium comes anywhere near this list, and most of these buildings were finished before the Great Depression even started. For most of a century, the math was simple. A college program gets 7 home dates, maybe 8, and every one of them has to cover the whole season. So the answer was always the same: build wider, not richer, and let the crowd itself be the product. But look closely at the renovations on this list, and the math has been shifting for longer than you'd think. Tennessee did it first back in 2006. Alabama, Ohio State, and the Rose Bowl have all made the same trade since, cashing in general seats for suites and clubs, the exact move an NFL owner makes. The programs with 100 years of sellouts behind them can finally afford to think like the NFL. The rest still can't. And that gap is what's actually being built into concrete right now. Let me know in the comments which of these stadiums actually caught you off guard. And if you want more stories about the money, the engineering, and the decisions behind the world's biggest builds, hit that subscribe button. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.